Welcome to Insights from the Couch, where real conversations meet real life at midlife.
We're Colette and Laura, two therapists and best friends, walking through the journey right alongside you. Whether you're feeling stuck, restless, or just unsure of what's next, this is a space for honest conversations, messy truths, and meaningful change.
And our Midlife Masterclass is now open. If you're looking to level up, get into action, and make midlife the best season yet, go to insightsfromthecouch.org and join our waitlist. Now let's dive in. All right, so let's get right into it because we started chatting before we hit record, and I'm already so excited for how much of what you have to say. Can you just start out by sharing with everyone what your TEDx Talk is about and when it's going to be available?
Yes, as we record this, it should be dropping any day now, and it's called The Prescription Pad of Misogyny, which is antidepressants, birth control pills, and wine. And I created this talk because it embodies the conversation I have with virtually every single woman who comes into my private practice, who is completely gaslit by her provider, yet who often knows more than her provider. Right. And currently, our educational system for medical school is not equipped to teach doctors how to prescribe HRT, even though many hormones are available and are FDA approved, and doctors still don't feel safe prescribing them. They're taught maybe an hour or two, if you're lucky, about menopause. Some medical schools are now teaching up to a week, but it's basically unheard of. So women are going to their doctor. They are told, and these are actual clients from my stories that are in, actual clients in my practice who have told me these stories, and this is in the TED Talk, but they will go to their provider and say, I'm having really low libido. And they hear, I kid you not, just change sex positions. Like,
no, from a doctor?
From a doctor. Or one of my clients said, I'm having a lot of trouble with insomnia. And her doctor said, well, just take a shot of Benadryl every night. That's what I do. Or have a glass of wine. Or you need to relax, which F that, relax.
Oh my God.
Give me a break.
Yes.
And then but then my own gaslighting story was when I went to my provider at the height of my perimenopausal insomnia, he was like, listen, you need to sleep. Just take Xanax every night. It's not addictive, which, spoiler alert, it's addictive.
It's highly addictive.
Highly addictive.
Highly addictive. And then wait for it. He literally went to his drawer in his cabinet, pulled out a copy of the Kabbalah, and told me to put it under my pillow.
Wow. So what this, first of all, in addition to the travesty against women, this also highlights the fact that doctors are seriously not mentally healthy, and we need a whole movement on that. Wow. But this is the experience women are having when they go for help, right?
Yes. And often, listen, we're Gen Xers. We're not taking this sitting down. So we're going to YouTube, we're going to TikTok, we're going to Instagram, and we're saying, what am I going to do? These are all my symptoms, which, by the way, pull right up on Google. And what do I do? And all these, there are influencers, but there's actual credible providers. I like to include myself in that list of credible providers who are educating, who are empowering women. And then they go to their providers, and their providers are still quoting this stupid 2002 Women's Health Initiative study, which was not interpreted properly. It was not designed properly, and which has been the final position papers on that were updated twice, in 2018, again, 2022, by the Menopause Society, which is a very conservative organization. So it's like all of that information, even the black box warning labels, were taken off estrogen products in 2025. Right. And still providers are still not hip to it. Yeah. And I'm a dietitian. I'm like, how do I know more about the research studies than your own doctor? That's even the most egregious. So women are rightfully and collectively enraged, as they should be. But at the same time, when a provider literally won't hand them a prescription, it's like then there's a real crisis happening when they know what's happening in their body, they know what they need and what they want, and they still can't get it. And any man can go get a boner pill
I
24/7.
know.
Yeah, so
Those
easily.
commercials are everywhere on TV too, like the little
Yeah.
blue. I'm like, why are we seeing this? But there's nothing for women. And honestly, like my experience was the same. Like, and I want to ask you about when you know to go and everything, because I'm 48, soon to be 49. And I went to my doctor and she's like, well, this is not for you. She's like,
No.
you had preeclampsia, you have like a history of high blood pressure. These aren't for you. That's what she said. And basically, like, we're not going to be taking this route. Like, she had decided for me. And I thought, huh, like, I think there's like multiple ways of taking these medications. Like,
Yes.
she had like foreclosed the conversation. And then the second part it was like, when do you know? Like, I mean, I'm in that phase where like my sleep is a little choppy, but I'm not miserable. I mean, my libido's a little like low, but it's not awful. Like, where's the line for, like, going, "Okay, I'm doing this?" Is it an age? Is it a set of symptoms? Or can you just hang out in, like, a gray zone and sort of be fine?
Okay. So we're never
So much
settling
there.
for fine, never settling for fine. We deserve exquisite menopause care and we deserve optimization. We don't deserve normal, quote unquote, normal, which is based on like the labs of Homer Simpson. It's not based on optimization. So, what we know from research, and I've seen this in my practice again and again, is that hormones actually lower blood pressure. They help with vascular function. They help prevent the laying down of arterial plaque. And it's
Yeah.
not just estrogen, it's also testosterone has incredible cardiovascular benefits for women. Testosterone's the predominant hormone in a woman's body prior to menopause, actually. So nobody even knows this. Nobody knows testosterone helps bone density, cognitive function, so many things. So number one, your provider's already not coherent or updated in her recommendations or her research. But number two, just because you've had a risk of hypertension, blood clot, stroke does not disqualify you from transdermal estrogen, which has
Right.
zero increased risk, but even oral estrogen, which is considered a higher risk, it's still a very, very tiny risk. And we have to remember that it's the delivery form, even in that Women's Health Initiative study, that there was an estrogen only arm where they only used estrogen. They didn't, and it was synthetic. Like it was Premarin, which is derived from the urine of pregnant horses. It wasn't even bioidentical. And women had health benefits and they had lower risk of cancers as well, which is even more wild. So if you're taking oral bioidentical estrogen, even with a history of blood pressure, it does not mean you are going to stroke out. But I would say start with transdermal first.
Right.
So your second question is, when do you know when to bring it in?
Yeah.
It's really good to notice your cycles. You're already noticing, Laura, like, hey, my sleep is less. Hey, my libido is starting to tank a little bit. I always tell women, if you notice changes in the length of your cycle, if it shortens or gets longer, if you notice you're getting more clots, more like surges, crime scene periods, or your sleep is really disrupted, or your mood really, you're like a different person during the luteal phase of your cycle, the second half of your cycle, that's a time when you want to start bringing in oral micronized progesterone. It's called Prometrium. It's FDA approved. It's covered under insurance. It starts at 100 milligrams. It goes up to 200 milligrams. That's the time to bring it in the second half of your cycle. And you can do it even if you're on a birth control pill or even if you're on an IUD. Why is early intervention so important? Well, quality of life, because if you're not sleeping the second half of your cycle, that's 2 weeks out of the month where you're not your best self and you're exhausted and irritable and brain fog. But number two, we want to also offset the tremendous mental health effects that perimenopause and menopause can have on our anxiety and depression, because there are many women who have committed suicide during perimenopause and that transition. We want to offset that. And oral micronized progesterone raises our feel-good neurotransmitters. It raises our GABA levels, which are very calming neurotransmitters, helps us fall asleep, helps us. It's like nature's chill pill. It opposes that wild estrogen roller coaster that's happening. We also want early intervention because we want to maintain our bones. We want to maintain our brains. I just recorded a podcast about how Alzheimer's starts in our 50s. It shows up in our 70s, but 2 out of 3 Alzheimer's patients are women because they have lost gray matter in the brain during the hormonal transition, during the neuroendocrine storm. So early intervention, it's not just for your quality of life, but it helps prevent so many diseases of chronic aging. It prevents bone loss. It prevents loss of gray matter. It maintains our pelvic floor. It maintains our cardiovascular health. And the sooner you get in, the better benefits you have. You can take hormones at any time. There's women who start them in their 70s, 80s, but you lose that really critical window, especially for bone and muscle and brain. You really get the most benefits early on.
So we should all be doing this. Most of us.
Most of us, I mean, some women choose not to, and that is their choice, right? I think we should be educated and empowered. Some women are actively getting chemo. Some women, though, there's a lot of, and say, no, I can't do this, or their oncologists take them off. Now, there is so much emerging research that shows how protective hormones are even when getting chemo. And there are women who lie to their oncologists and don't say they're taking hormones, and they don't tell their prescribers that they have cancer. It's like they have to, sort of compartmentalize their health concerns depending on the provider if they want to continue. But again, there's so much emerging research to show that going off hormones, A, it wrecks quality of life, but B, it's hormones that have been in our bodies our whole lives aren't necessarily the root cause of our cancers, aren't necessarily feeding them. And it's such a long, nuanced conversation, but we don't necessarily have to go off of. But yes, as often as you can, you should get educated, informed, empowered. And yes, if it feels aligned with you, then yes, you should, because I would be like Gollum curled up under my desk, like, if I wasn't on hormones, I would not sleep or have cognition. I'd be up all night hot flashing and just not sleeping at all. So yeah, I'd probably be peeing my pants too. Like I function much better on hormones.
But listening to you, I think it's so interesting because I have been on the hunt for a better provider. So I've seen a number of people recently. I hear something completely different from each one, completely different, to the point of contradictory. That's crazy making. And then I have a unique situation because I've had an ablation. So it's impossible to know what's happening by the marker of my period. And also, I don't really have symptoms. I do have a little bit of night sweat or waking up in the night, but I've also had that my whole life. But I don't feel bad. And when I have said to people, and doctors really prescribe a lot based on symptoms, and there is so much value. Obviously, the symptoms matter, but there's so much value to our organs, our brain, our risk of cardiovascular disease, that this is a challenge for some people too, because the first thing they say to me is, well, if you don't have symptoms, then we don't need to worry about it. And it drives me nuts.
I've heard the same thing.
Yeah, and I'm going to be 53 in a couple of months. So,
well, yes. And that's the most dangerous part, is if you're not having symptoms, because bone loss is not symptomatic until you fracture your hip and break it. So number one, you can get your FSH and LH, that's your follicular stimulating hormone, and your luteinizing hormone checked. You can get your SHBG checked, your sex hormone binding globulin, to see where you are in the perimenopause highway or menopause. You're clear if you're hot flashed your whole life, but especially now, or you're noticing some.
No, I haven't hot flashed my whole life. I haven't.
Okay.
And I don't have hot flashes. I have night sweats. Maybe that's in the hot flash family. I've woken up in that, like, I've been a bad sleeper my whole life. The night sweat thing appears to be new. I'm on low dose HRT, not testosterone. I did it for a while. I didn't notice any difference in anything.
Yeah.
The current doctor was like, oh, don't bother with testosterone. I don't think that's good. I mean, it's just maddening trying to figure out, even among experts, or even when you have a doctor. This person I'm seeing now is one of those menopause certified practitioners. So it's very hard. I've been the one to go in and say, look, I want to take HRT because of what I've learned about how good it is for me long term, regardless of symptoms. But I've had to really fight for that. And then it's still hard to get clear answers.
Yes. And often that menopause certification doesn't always mean that they are hormone literate. And the fact that already there are gaps where you're having to fight, you're having to push. A lot of menopause, quote, menopause trained providers are still taught to put women on birth control pills. Birth control pills are not actually FDA approved to treat menopausal symptoms.
Wow.
They do not prevent loss of gray matter in the brain. They don't prevent cardiovascular disease. They, to a degree, may prevent some bone loss. They may prevent crime scene periods, and they may prevent some hot flashing. But again, I always say menopause is not a birth control deficiency. It's a hormone deficiency coupled with, yes, we have to adapt our diets. Alcohol and caffeine may not be so good for us anymore. Or as tolerated as they were before. We're going to have to bump up our protein and a fiber. We're going to have to, manage our stress better, strength train, all the great pieces. HRT alone is not the magic pill, but you're clearly right. Like you said, Colette, not getting optimal care, because if I was a doctor and you came into my practice, I would say, great, we're going to bump up your doses of this, and then we're going to retest your blood in 6 to 8 weeks, and then we're going to adjust accordingly. And these are your optimal ranges for. Exactly. I'm going to give a shout out to 2 of my colleagues who are licensed in the state of Florida, who I love. One is Dr. Anat, A-N-A-T, Sapan, S-A-P-A-N. And one is my colleague and friend, Jen Goldstock, J-E-N-N, Goldstock. Both are licensed in the state of Florida and are completely hormone literate, because you shouldn't have to be suffering. If you're still on HRT but having these symptoms, that means you're not on the right dose and you need to bump up.
Right. And I even said that to her, to this particular, I think she's a nurse practitioner. And she said, oh, well, I had to beg even to have my blood work retested. She said, I don't really see the need for that. You're menopausal, and therefore we don't expect you to have hormones. And even having a low dose is probably good enough, unless, she did say, if you're having more symptoms. Now, at the time, I hadn't started having night sweats. I by the way, have an appointment with a new doctor in a couple of months. I've been waiting to see. But it's just so interesting that even for those of us who are getting this information online, have read the books, are seeking it, it's still really hard to get clear, accurate info.
Yes.
So do you have any tips for people of where to start, who to try? Like, how do we begin?
Yeah. Here? And unfortunately, I feel like there's a big issue with equity too, because the best providers I know don't take insurance because they spend an hour with you. And so it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be, if our doctors were privately trained, it could be insurance-based easily. So a couple of things. One is, we're going to talk about the 2 different tracks that you can take. So first and foremost, if you're going to your regular provider, schedule a separate visit to talk about hormones. Don't wait until your doctor's face is between your legs doing your pap smear to say, oh, by the way, let's talk about hormones. That's a separate visit entirely, okay? Number 2, though, save yourself time and heartache. Call providers ahead of time and say, does this provider, nurse practitioner, naturopath, DO, MD, does this provider prescribe hormones regularly? Are they hormone literate? Are they comfortable doing that? Because if they're like, no, or, oh, we prescribe birth control pills, then
Right.
run your ass away because you're just going to be lost and wasting time. So there are insurance-based doctors that do prescribe hormones. There are also providers that will let you drive their care, like Colette, you drove your care. You are a perfect example of saying, I want this. And you
Yes.
were poo-pooed, but you got the prescription anyway. But she's not titrating your dose up. She's not monitoring you. You're the one asking for it and ultimately switching providers, it sounds like. So
Yep.
that's step one, is you want to make sure that doctors understand hormones don't cause cancer. There are literally zero studies that prove hormones directly cause cancer, right? Doctors are prescribing wine every night. Wine carries a far greater risk of cancer
Wait,
than,
doctors are literally still prescribing wine. That
yes.
No.
shocks me. I mean, it is so definitive that alcohol is so
Mm.
damaging and cancer causing. How is this
Mm.
still happening?
Oh, well, Mr. Epstein filed, Dr. Peter Attia prescribed wine every night. So therefore it must be true. I
It's
mean, it's
crazy.
Really?
so egregious. Yeah, my husband came up to me and he's like, I just want you to know Peter Attia says I can have a cocktail every night. And I said, Peter Attia is full of shit.
Yeah,
No,
well,
that's
Peter
not
Attia
true.
says you can eat like tons of meat, like red meat, you
Yeah.
know? I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm just,
But
I don't know.
alcohol is way worse than red meat. I mean, alcohol,
I
and
don't
Yeah.
know.
Red
I still
meat,
drink. I haven't given up drinking, but
In
it's bad.
proper doses.
Like, I know I'm drinking poison when I'm having my glass of wine. I'm
yeah.
under no
And listen, time and place. I'm not alcohol free either, but
Yeah.
it's used judiciously. I certainly don't drink like I did when I was 20. Now it's like
Right.
once or
Yeah.
twice a month at best. But
But is that
yes,
the
so
hang up, Esther? Is it like that these doctors are afraid of liability, or is it they just don't know how to monitor the process?
they just don't know. They have no training in
That's
medical school. And you couple that with a large ego and a patient coming in saying they know more than you, and the hackles go up, the defenses go up. And I always say, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. We're supposed to listen to our patients. If doctors just listened and stopped dismissing and gaslighting, which is really an ego-based response in both male and female doctors. It's ego-based, it's lack of knowledge. My own GYN recently, I have a functional medicine GYN, but she's one of my best friends, so I don't have her doing my pap smears, right? She doesn't need to be in that part of my anatomy. And so I go to just a regular garden variety doctor who says she's hormone literate. And last time I went, I take a high dose of compounded sustained release progesterone because that is what I need, like a horse. I need to be knocked out, right? So she was like, that can, high dose progesterone, which is 400 milligrams. She goes, that can, I could put you in increased risk of cancer, which is not true for bioidentical progesterone. It's only true of the synthetic progestins. And I looked at her point blank and I said, not sleeping will give me a far greater risk of cancer.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that she
risk
agreed with, because
benefit.
I was like, oh, lady. But so let's say that you do have a little bit of financial flexibility. Let's talk about your options there. Number one, calling your local compounding pharmacy. Every state has at least one compounding pharmacy. Call them up and say, hey, what providers do you know have really happy patients who are really hormone literate, who prescribe hormones across the board? You'll get at least a couple names that way. But number two, which is great, number two, there are some online platforms that prescribe. A lot of them don't provide testosterone. And I have to say, my patients have had very mixed reviews through those platforms. So I do not endorse any one platform at all, unfortunately, but it is an option and some of them do take insurance. But again, you will not be getting that testosterone prescription, which is really helpful.
Can get it through MIDI, at least in Florida, because I used that for a while, but I didn't,
Yes.
overall, I didn't like the experience, but I was able to get testosterone.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
I've tried everything, I swear to God.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, but
Yes.
I love the idea of finding your compound pharmacy. We have several here in this area, and calling them to find out who's. That's such
It's
a
a
great
good hack. Yeah.
idea.
It's a really good hack. I also
Yeah.
wrote a book called See Ya Later, Ovulator. And it's right here. Hold on, I'm gonna pull it up. It's called
That's
Mastering
so
Menopause. Mastering Menopause with Nutrition, Hormones, and Self-Advocacy. So I've given this to my own doctor. There's studies, there are research studies in the back of the book. So you can also advocate for yourself and hands to your doctor and say, I have the research studies that show hormones will benefit me. Here is why. This is why I want to start hormones. And so again, it's hard to find the right one. Just because someone has been, certified by the Menopause Society does not mean they're not going to prescribe birth control pills, unfortunately. And I have spoken in rooms where Menopause Society doctors have been present and who objected to me advocating for hormones for women, and who said, well, we still don't feel that women truly need hormones. And I was like,
Oh
oh
my God.
my God. It was really quite frustrating to hear that they're not updating their standards of care either. I'll be fully transparent.
I want to ask you about your advocacy work in just a second because I'm so curious about that. But one thing I want to like not skip over is like where do you just request those tests you mentioned from your doctor, like the one with about your, sex hormones? And can you just say, because I can just hear my doctor not wanting to do those or
100%. Yes. I mean, often if I ask women to have their, estradiol, progesterone, free and total testosterone, and DHEA, and pregnenolone, and FSH and LH, doctors will say, well, you're in perimenopause and your hormones can fluctuate between 30% on any given day.
That's what they told me.
Which is accurate. However, if your cycles are regular and you test between days 19 and 21 of your cycle, you will still have a baseline. Or if your cycles are all over the place, you're skipping months, you could test days 1 through 5 after your cycle start. Like, you can get enough of a consistent base to know. So yes, you can ask for those blood tests. And your doctor may say you don't need them, in which case you could say, if insurance I'll sign a waiver. If insurance doesn't cover these, I'll pay for them because they're not that expensive. And by the way, pro tip, if labs charge you thousands of dollars, I've appealed it every single time because I get my patients, I think it's 7 vials worth of blood work. I run it through LabCorp for $300.
Yeah.
And then they can
Wow.
submit that to insurance. So yes, I work in my practice. I get everyone access to these blood tests if they can't get it from their provider. And plus I do a Dutch test, which is a dried urine test for comprehensive hormones. And it shows me your urinary metabolites of hormones. And you do it 5 to 7 days after you're ovulating, or if you're on the pill, or really not, if you could do it anytime basically, but it shows me what your body's producing and how you're detoxing those hormones as well, which is important because if you have a risk of cancer, if you have a family risk, or you yourself have a risk, you want to see how hormones are moving through your liver so that you can properly metabolize them, and that lowers your risk for genetic expression of cancer as well. So I do all those tests because, yeah, it's a shame. I wouldn't have the practice I had if modern medicine practiced the way it was supposed to.
Right.
But I built it out of necessity because I was like, screw this. I'm going to build the practice that I would have wanted when I figured it all out myself. But it's infuriating that it has to be this way. And it's infuriating that it's not equitable. It's not fair. Things are not covered the way they should be because hormones are not profitable.
So actually, I want to ask you something about that before we get into the advocacy piece.
Yeah.
So on the flip side, another problem I've noticed in my journey, and I've heard from other people, is doctors who are making this whole process profitable because there is a lot of attention now on the menopause experience. And there are people turning this into like very expensive clinics and forcing things on people in some cases. So I'm just curious your opinion too on, for example, I left one doctor who the only type of testosterone he would give me was the pellet, and I did not want the pellet. And I'm curious what you think about the pellet per se,
Yeah.
because I hear mixed things. Personally, the experts we've had on here so far have not been fans of them. What's your
Yeah.
take on the pellet?
Yeah, I align with that because I align with not starting there at all. Imagine that you're driving a very lovely, reliable Kia, which is a good car. It's going to get you from where you need to go, but it doesn't have a 6-cylinder engine, right? So then imagine somebody puts you in a Maserati, which I don't know if it's 6 or 8 cylinder. I don't, my son would know this, not me. But anyway, you go from 0 to 120 down the highway.
Mm.
That's what pellets are in a woman's body who has had no testosterone. Her testosterone production has been declining since her 30s. So she gets to perimenopause or menopause in a very depleted state. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, you are putting pellets in. The clients of mine who have done that as a first pass of treatment have gained on average 10 pounds, have enlarged clitorises that don't recede, and lose hair on their head and grow it from their face.
Okay,
So
nightmare, nightmare. You guys,
nightmare, nightmare,
Awful.
nightmare. I have
yeah, like
one
we have a friend
client.
who was like humping the like signposts on the
Yes.
street. She's like, I've turned into
So
like
funny.
a
Oh my
sex
God.
maniac. Yeah.
Oh my God. Humping. Yes, humping
So she
things.
said she wanted to sit on a
And then
fire
the fire
hydrant.
hydrant, that's what it was.
Ooh. Oh, I gotta try that one. That sounds fun.
Yeah, so it's just right. You don't know how you're going to
Yeah.
react. It could be way too much. And then what about the
Well,
fact that it's a foreign object in your body that doesn't dissolve, right?
it dissolves over 6 months. So what happens is after about 3 to 4 months, as you feel great at first, you're like, all right, fully charged. As your levels decline, you're still, if you have your blood drawn, it's going to be at a supraphysiologic level, way above what your baseline needs to be. But as you're coming down, you feel withdrawal and you feel fatigued again and low libido and all these things. And then you have to wait 2 more months till you could get the next set. It's also a
Oof.
surgical procedure every time. It's an incision in your butt muscle. So there's risk of infection. And at the end of the day, topical works for, I would say on average 80, don't quote me on these stats, but from what I've seen in my practice, 80 to 90% of women respond beautifully
Yeah.
to topical applications just on the inside of your forearms, your lower abdomen, inner thigh, back of your arm, or injections. Injections are the next step because those only last for a week. So
Okay.
again, you can really titrate the dose. And then I literally have had one client in my practice who put herself on the pellets. She went and found a provider. I was like, I never recommended this to you. And when I look at her blood and Dutch, it's crazy high. I've spoken to her physician, but like she won't stop. So, but most
Okay.
women just don't need that. Remember, in menopause, we're not looking to establish the hormones we had in our 20s and 30s. We're just looking to establish a dose where we offset chronic diseases of aging. And it really works out to about a fifth of the dose of birth control pills. I mean, it's a really, really, really tiny dose.
But that's a great way to look at it and to sort of summarize it right there. What I've had to say proactively is offsetting the risk of these diseases, right? That
That's
to
it.
me is the bottom. Obviously, if you're having a lot of symptoms, that matters too. But there are some of us who don't have a ton of symptoms. I probably would just not do it if it wasn't for the disease and the organ
Yeah.
health and my brain, and that matters to me. It breaks my
Yeah.
heart that my mom she was part of that window of that erroneous study or the erroneous interpretation of that study where, it never happened and she didn't have symptoms either. So I
Yeah.
just think it's really a shame. I mean,
Mm.
osteoporosis alone, Alzheimer's, brain decline, like there's so much to this. So tell us about, because
Yeah.
obviously a lot needs to change. And I have
Yes.
2 daughters, that when my daughters are my age, this is a very different conversation.
Yeah.
This is being taught in medical school. So what are you doing? Because it sounds like you're doing a lot of cool stuff to try to
Yes.
change things.
Yes, at the public policy level, I have initiatives in place to really that are currently in a proposal stage to update medical school curriculums to fully teach menopause. And by the way, like there's brilliant doctors like Rachel Rubin who did a 4.5 hour curriculum to educate physicians. It's not something that needs to go on for months, weeks, months,
Right.
and years. It's something that doctors can go to conferences that I go to and learn how
Yeah.
to prescribe hormones, how to monitor, how to adjust the dosages, and all the accompanying research. This is not something that is out there. It's not something that's not supported by science. So we can do that. But my goal is my pie in the sky, high level vision is A, we update medical school curriculums. B, we update all the disciplines who are currently practicing. We monitor all the psychiatrists who are prescribing SSRIs instead of saying, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Have you skipped a period? Are you having trouble sleeping? Are you noticing temperature and mood changes? Are you noticing heart palpitations? Doing a symptom checklist when women say, I'm not feeling like myself. I don't know what's happening. I want to kill my husband. I don't want to hear anybody's chewing. Like, get away from me. I want to move to
That's
an
my
island.
I have that one.
Right? So we need to educate a multidisciplinary, have a multidisciplinary approach. We also desperately need to update the knowledge of oncologists. My God, it's unbelievable. Like cancer and hormones, it's so desperately needs research. So then we also need to get testosterone FDA approved for women. You may have seen just this past weekend as we record this, of course, the men have all the removal labels off testosterone. I'm like, effing hell, get women testosterone. It's so ridiculous. Like men's starting dose is 10 milligrams. Women's is like 0.5 milligrams. That is the starting dose for testosterone for women. So we need that. And last but not least, we need to bump up production of hormones. Only 4% of women 4%. Maybe that number's bumped up to 5 since the black box warning labels have been removed. Such a tiny amount of women are even on hormones now because access, right? Equitability, knowledge, there's so many barriers to them. Fear, so many barriers to women getting hormones. But then when they are right now, I too have been running to multiple pharmacies to cobble together where I'm going to source my hormones. We need to bump up production. We know this is possible because we did it with COVID vaccines. Like overnight, vaccines were available. We can do this with hormones too.
I find it very hard to believe that somebody doesn't want to make a ton of money off of this. Like, I can't believe any drug is not being rushed to production.
Yeah, well, hormones don't have a high profit margin. In fact, pharmacies often lose money with hormones. I mean, I use, for example, a Femring, which is a 24/7 delivery of systemic estrogen via a vaginal ring, because I had such bad genitourinary symptoms of menopause that having a 24/7 dispensary of it in my body, like that is the only thing that works. We tried patches, we tried cream, we tried Estring, which is a vaginal estrogen ring. We tried all these things. Guess what? That product is $980 to $1,100 retail for a 3-month supply. So I get coupons for it and I get down to $180 for a 3-month supply. But like, I'm a classic example of the pharmacies losing money and my doctor had to contest it and write letters to the insurance company and they kept turning us down. I mean, we had to fight to get that and say, we've tried every other route. So yeah, drug companies don't make money, so no money, no incentive to get it done for women.
Well, I'm so glad you're doing this advocacy work because this really needs to change. I just can't believe it's still so hard, but I am glad at least it's become a huge part of the conversation. Women are not being silent about it, and people like you are really leading the charge as we greatly, greatly need. So can you tell our listeners also how they can reach you, connect with you, your books, your TEDx talk again, all that good stuff?
Yes. Well, find me at estherblum.com. That's ESTHERBLUM. But also on Instagram at Gorgeous Esther. And my TEDx talk, The Prescription Pad of Misogyny, will be up on YouTube imminently. And
Probably by the time this episode drops. Yeah.
God
Yes.
willing, knock wood. And then I too have a podcast that Colette will be on tomorrow. I'm so excited, called The Midlife Realignment.
Nice.
So yes, tune in. Yes, for all things hormones. Or as my brother always says, hormones make a hormone. I'm like, oh God.
That's a good one
How have I never heard that before? Okay, that is the perfect note to end
to end on.
I am so excited because even I learned some new things in this talk that I'm going to add to my repertoire and advocating for myself. And I'm sure you
Thank
guys
you.
listening did too. This has been so helpful. I mean, Esther, you're such a wealth of knowledge
Definitely.
and everything
Thank
that helps
you.
us get out there and get the treatment we deserve, right? Fine isn't good enough. We deserve excellent care. And it's not just about hot flashes. This is about longevity and living well and feeling good while we're here. So thank you so much. And thanks everyone
Thank
for
you.
listening. We hope you got some great insights from our couch, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.